Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, I bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. And today it is an honor and a huge privilege to have one of metal's iconic guitar players, Mr. Michael Schenker, on the show. He is one of the most significant rock guitarists in the history of music, and still will be when he shuts the guitar case for the last time, folks. I'm telling you right now, Michael has been blowing people away with his guitar playing since the 70s, with UFO by writing hits like Doctor Doctor and Rock Bottom, as well as with the Scorpions classics such as Love Drive, Coast to Coast, and Holiday. Plus, he's done other stuff too with Michael Schenker Group, aka M.S.G, and released such masterpieces as Assault Attack and Built to Destroy, the live legacy One Night at Budokan. Michael Schenker Fest will release new album entitled Resurrection out on March 2nd on Nuclear Blast Records. And I'm telling you right now, Warrior is a badass song. One of their first singles off this. So I'm thinking it's really, really good stuff. So Michael, thank you so much for taking time to do this interview with me, man.
Oh, thank you for having me.
What's impressed you or excited you the most about the new album Resurrection? What's caught your eye about it, if anything, at the moment?
Well, that decision to make, to have, rather than having four singers each sing three songs, I wanted to make sure that there was at least two or three songs where they were sharing a song, and that became Warrior. And I was so happy. It was the second piece of music I put on the table. And Michael Voss, I told him that I wanted to have a couple of songs or three songs, sung by everybody together. So he secretly was starting to write lyrics and melodies. And then after the second song I put down, he said to me in the morning, Michael, I did something last night. Have a listen and to your music. And he's our co-producer, Michael Voss. And so he's played it to me. I went, wow, this is fantastic. This is so perfect for old singers to sing. And it became Warrior. And it's a fantastic song. It's a heavy riff. It's a great melodies, great vocal performances, and I love it. And so, and for the hardcore fan, it must be very entertaining to, even without the footage, to hear the different voices and then going, this must be Robin, this must be Doogie, and so on. So it's very entertaining. It's a very unusual album because I don't even think something like that exists on this planet. And people always ask me, how did you get those four guys together? That should have been something that should have theoretically not been possible. And I agree, maybe, but I never thought of if it could work or not. I just thought one day, Michael, it's your third part of your life. It's time to perform, the most popular music of Michael Schenker with as many original singers as possible. So I thought the 80s would be a good possibility. And so, called up Gary, Robin, and Graham, and they were ready to do it. And same with the musicians. I've got a fantastic lineup. Everything is connected one way or another, and it's a complete full 80s, like Ted McKenna, Chris Glam, the rhythm section. They were the original rhythm section for Michael Schenker Group after Cozy Powell. They were the original rhythm section behind Graham Bonnet on Assault Attack, which became musicians' favorite. And then they were also the same. And then and then of course a unique little thing came to mind in Steve Mann, who actually wrote Anytime with Robin McCauley. So he was connected to the McCauley Schenker Group, and together and putting it all together, it's just a fantastic combination of musicians and singers. And so when everybody agreed, we started touring, and then one thing led to another. We started making a DVD. The DVD was released, and then it showed the people around the world the potential of the undertaking rather than watching it through iPhone and YouTube. the people, started to really understand what this was about, and record companies especially, that started to make offers, and they wanted this to be signed. And then Nuclear Blast was the most attractive company I said yes to, and so after being out of the loop of rock and roll for so many years, it's fantastic to be back in the third part of my life. And the middle years were more for experimenting and dealing more with life itself. And so I made my musical contribution in the 70s, and unconsciously I had no plan to become famous or anything. It just all happened by itself. And then after Strangers in the Night with UFO, and after I opened the doors for the Scorpions with Love Strike for America, I decided, I by that time, I was 23 years old in 78, and I had reached, the experience, fame, and success at its highest, and I was able to make a decision to either stay up there or start a new chapter in my life and experiment with music and do my own thing and get things out of my system, deal with life itself. And so I was looking for an unknown singer, which became Gary Barn with a fantastic, beautiful voice, middle-range voice. But Peter Mensch, who started to manage me, he was sending me straight back to Aerosmith, which was weird. And then it took another 10 years before I really was able to completely be on my own, which started in the early 90s when I moved to Arizona and built a recording studio. And then for the next 15 years, I was doing whatever I wanted. And basically, people didn't hear much of me, but that was my period when I did all the crazy experiments with electric instrumental albums, acoustic instrumental albums, jams. I was a couple of endless jam with Ainsley Dunbar and Tim Borgert and David Patterson, and I had such a great time. Those were, by the way, the most rewarding years, and they made it possible for me to start. In 2008, I was stage fright all my life, and in 2008, all of a sudden, I had this urge. I wanted to be on stage. I didn't know where that came from. The only way I can explain is that the middle years, created that. And so that I took that as a sign to be back in the loop of rock and roll. And then basically with the Michael Schenker Fest album, I put both legs back in, and I'm going to carry on now where I stopped with as a 23-year-old after Love Drive and Strangers in the Night with UFO and Scorpions, and carry on right from there. And the middle years, that was into the arena area, deal with life and deal with experiments and learn about life and carry on developing your guitar playing. And so now I'm in celebration mood and wanting to perform with as many original singers as possible. I spreaded my lineups, went all over the place because of the middle years. I couldn't keep people on retainer, so I had to look for new musicians when the others were not available anymore, when I needed somebody to make a record with. And so, unlike other bands, they have one band for 40 years. They create a brand name and they put all their energy into that one name. I went all over the place, and so I decided to try to get as much of that and of those guys, the singers that created most popular music of Michael Schenker, recorded with and sang that music, and put them all together into a center point and basically creating one band. And so no energy lost. All the energy is put together in one focus, and now we are able to, album is coming out on the 2nd of February. On March, 2nd of March, and the tour starts, the US tour starts 6th of March. First time ever that you guys are going to be the first guys hearing and seeing this show with 4 singers, and which is also the new album lineup. The last show we did was in England with 3 singers before the album. And so now we have added Dougie White from Michael Schenker's Temple of Rock. And so now we are complete. We are already, it's a 2.5-hour show. We are going to be playing classics, new songs, instrumentals. There's something for everybody. We are booked until 2019 already, and we're looking so much forward to. It's not long from now, and it will be the release of the album. I'm very happy with the results. Michael Foss, our co-producer, said it's the best thing he's ever done. So that means something. So we're in good shape. And in Europe, we did a listening party, and we had European countries coming to our studio and listen for the first time. That was already back in November, and they already, many of them, voted this album as the album of the year. So it's a very, very good place to be in.
It's like you said, you got four lead vocalists on this album. I mean, the rock gods had the shine on you for this one, because that's a feat right there to have four vocalists on an album like that.
No, it doesn't really exist as far as I know. But then again, what do I know? I don't really peek over the fence, I just do my thing. And so, but people keep asking me, I mean, how did you make that possible? It's almost like an impossible thing to do. I mean, it is not a master plan. I didn't come up with this overnight and made a 10-year plan for ahead of time. I mean, this is just out of the moment. One thing leads to another, and it's very slow pace put together. And every step, every new development came out of the now, and and step by step, we created a DVD eventually, and now an album with new songs in a recording studio. So it is something I couldn't have planned, but it happened, and it's very enjoyable. That's the fun part. It's hard work. It's everybody lives. We have Gary living in Bangkok, and then two guys in Los Angeles, and some in Scotland and Hanover, and in the UK. So we have people all over the place, and it still works, and we are capable of moving forward. And, we have a great product out that we're very happy with, and we're going to be on tour until 2019, and who knows what else is going to come, which we don't know yet, but there might be some answers just around the corner. By the way, 2018 is now. That is 40 years ago. I recorded Strangers in the Night with UFO.
Wow.
And so who knows, maybe even Phil Mock pops up sometimes and sings a couple of UFO songs. And in 2019, it's the 50 years of anniversary of recording for Klaus Meine and myself. We wrote In Search of Peace of Mind. That was my very first music I ever wrote. And so maybe who knows, maybe he is open to coming up and sing with the Michael Schenker Fest, from that era. So anything is possible, and more.
Any songs off this new album, Michael, that stand out more to you possibly on it as of right now? I mean, I know these could change from day to day, but are there any that possibly stand out a lot to you?
The thing is, the way I listen to music is in general differently, but with this album, it is, again, even different, because first of all, you have a couple of songs where all singers sing together. I am completely enchanted by that, because they sing so beautiful, and the lines, they fit so perfectly for each singer, and the two songs are so great, well written. The music was there, and then Michael Foss, he wrote the lyrics and the melodies, and the way that it was performed by the original singers is just great, And for that reason, I love those two songs, because I love the idea. I wish we could have done it on 3 or 4 songs, but we only, but something unexpected came about, which was we made combinations of background vocals, between different combinations of different singers. And so that added a lot of color to the songs, And so the interesting thing is, when we did the listening party and invited European countries, it's the funniest thing. Somebody's favorite song became somebody else's least favorite, and so on. So it's really a matter of taste, and I usually focus on lead guitar. For me, when I was a 14-year-old and I went guitarist hunting, there was never a song accepted by me unless there was great lead guitar playing in it. So a song without a great lead guitar playing was not a song. So I'm a bit different maybe than the rest of the guys, but in general, every song has got something magical going for it. If it's a lead guitar or if it's all great songs, basically. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's just and because of there's so many different singers on it, it's like it's impossible to pick your favorite, to be honest, because you do have that variety. That variety makes the album, and the variety of songs and the variety of vocal sounds and keeping it together with good lead breaks and stuff like that. I would just simply say the album as a whole is it.
How was working with producer Michael Vosk going on this, man?
Yeah, Michael Voss is the co-producer. We both produced the album together, and we have worked for 8 years now. Michael Voss is a Michael Schenker fan, M.S.G fan, a Gary Barden fan, 80s fan, Graham Bonnet fan, Robbie McCauley fan. We couldn't have had a better guy doing this with, and so he went the extra mile, and he did a lot of secret lyrics writing and melody writing, and he came up with a couple of ideas for Graham Bonnet. Graham Bonnet was very happy with what Michael Voss came up with, and it was perfect for him. So he master tailored for people, wherever there was some help needed. Michael Voss, helped out. But basically, I always start to create when I come into the studio. I come in with the music, I create the blueprint, and then Michael, adds his gimmicks to it and his ideas, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we work very, very well as a team.
There were some great musicians who made a special appearance on this album, such as Kirk Hammett of Metallica, Wayne Findlay, and Michael Voss. When you found out that Kirk Hammett was a huge fan of yours growing up, and you influenced him as a guitar player, and now seeing him in one of the biggest metal bands of all time, which, Metallica, of course, what was your reaction to finding out about Kirk being a huge fan of yours and how nervous he was to even meet you and stuff, man?
Well, the thing is, Peter Mensch, who, when I finished with Love Drive, Scorpions, I went to the UK, where Peter Mensch was waiting for me. He was doing AC/DC at the time, and then Leppard, and then later Metallica. And I lived with him for 2 years, and he always told me that Kirk Hammett is I'm his Santa Claus, and which means I'm his favorite guitarist. And the thing is, since I never listened to any music since I was 17, and I didn't copy anybody since I was 17, like I said before, I don't peek over the fence. I just do my own thing, and I don't know what's out there. I'm sure there is great stuff out there. So I didn't really know much about it. I just knew they were a big band. Everybody talked about Metallica, but you can't switch off lobby music or elevator music, and you can't switch off the music in a boutique in France, where I went to buy some new clothes, and I spent there an hour, and they played the whole Metallica album. That's how I learned about The Unforgiven, a beautiful song. Mm-hmm. And that's when I found out, that Kirk is, especially on the classical part, melodic part, I can hear myself in him, And then when he was actually playing on this song, Heart and Soul, I can hear him, how I sounded like on Lonesome Crow. So he must have, he must have been 5 years old when Lonesome Crow came out, and he must have liked that vibrato, and he kept it ever since. Made it his signature, because I couldn't believe it when I heard, when I first heard his part of the jam. I went like, wow, that sounds just like the way I used to sound like on Lonesome Crow. It was amazing.
That's awesome, man. That is really awesome. I mean, you're still influencing kids to this day, Michael. I mean, seriously.
Oh, especially now, because it seems like basically metal music now. It seems like never ending, In the 70s, I had a big influence on the 80s, and then in the 90s, it was a bit quiet because all the tapping guys, they destroyed Eddie Van Halen's nice guitar playing, and so it became overwhelmed, and a cleansing time needed to take place, and there was not much as I hear from people, lead guitar going on in the commercial rock world, but people telling me I have, a connection to 16-year-olds and 20-year-olds, and they telling me that, especially also since I'm with Dean guitars, that they all play Dean guitars, and that I have influenced so many new metal bands. I mean, it's even bigger than what I did in the 70s for the 80s. It's now, it's unbelievable. It's almost every metal band is like that. There is a fan in it. I mean, it's unbelievable, and that's why Nuclear Blast, they have all those new metal bands, and metal is becoming more and more acceptable, and it's becoming more and more desirable rather than the music from the 80s. And so, but I am just kind of, I fell in love with Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, and I use that kind of music. It's the metal music. I use that as a screen, and I paint the art of lead guitar with pure self-expression on top of it. And so it always it sounds a little different or fresh because of where my part comes from. Even if I use that particular metal sound as a screen, but what I sprinkle on top of is a pure self-expression, and that always has an effect in a very unique way, because you don't recycle a trend. You are becoming a trend maker basically, and you are always adding something new to a trend, and that's the difference.
Do you still see yourself growing musically, or has it been more of a personal growth for you as far as music?
Like people call it, some people call it practicing. I call it a play and discover. For me, guitar playing has always been something to enjoy, like a kid in a sandbox. And there is no scoring, there is no competition, there is no anything other than having fun with, I never wanted to be famous. I mean, it all came by itself. And in fact, when we had the first hit with UFO with Lights Out, I ran away because all of a sudden I thought fun was end. Now it's a must. But I came back and finished with Strangers in the Night and Lonesome and Love Drive, and then I started my own band and started to experiment. But for me, it's the art of lead guitar with pure self-expression. And when I play guitar, it's called play and discover. It's like treasure hunting. You enjoy the journey as you look for new pieces of gold, and then eventually you find one. You're very happy. And so I do the same on the guitar. I love, just playing just playing guitar and having fun with it. And then I find a piece of gold and I put this on the side and collect those pieces until it's time to make a new album. And then I sprinkle that stuff all over it.
I'd just like to say, as a fan of yours for a very long time, thank you, man, for what you have brought to the table for music and what you continue to do for the metal world. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Folks, this album, Michael Schenker Resurrection, that is coming out March 2nd of 2018 on Nuclear Blast Records. You want to get out and pick that up. Plus, I mean, all of Michael's stuff is really great. If you like the metal stuff, heavy rock, he awesome guitarist. Michael, how can folks stay in touch with you, buy some merchandise, tickets, tour dates? How can they do that, my friend?
Well, MichaelSchenkerhimself.com or Michael Schenker Facebook, Nuclear Blast, it's through all of those.
Before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Okay. Hi, this is Michael Schenker, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great music coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you very much. Take care.